Hey, this is a demo for Verdant. So right here I have Jupyter Lab open in my browser, and right here, housedemo.ipynb, I've got a right proper Jupyter notebook in which I'm reading in some data, in this case on houses, and doing a little bit of data analysis, and below, doing a regression. The purpose of the regression here is to predict house selling price from different features of the property. All right, so that's not the point of this demo. What is Verdant. So Verdant we've got installed here, and if we click on the History tab, this opens the pane over here that makes up Verdant. The Activity tab here has pretty much all the history of what I've done in the notebook so far. So I already have 123 versions from 10:53 p.m. down to the earliest at 9:09 p.m. when I started the notebook. So about 2 hours of work has generated 123 revisions from every time that the notebook was loaded, run, saved, or cells were added or removed. All right. Personally, if I need to find information from what I've done, I don't want to scour through 123 versions. So the purpose of Verdant is to make it easy for a data scientist to find useful information from their prior experiments. So let's start with what we have in the activity pane. Here we have a number of timestamped activities, and over here we have this sort of funny barcode matchstick looking thing. This is a visualization of where activity occurred in our notebook. So each of the little barcode lines are a cell in the notebook, and the really bold ones here in blue and red and green and gray, that indicates where in the notebook activity happened. So here if I see blue, that means a cell was changed. Red corresponds to a cell being removed. Gray, just to a run that nothing actually changed. And green corresponds to a cell being added. So this isn't a whole lot of information if I actually want to know, what change happened at 121. This is the revision number for the whole notebook. So what I can do is actually click on one of these rows, and this opens the complete revision for version 121 of my notebook. So right here I can see I've got tons of cells. They're each labeled version 1 of code cell 7, version 6 of code cell 30. Each of the code cells have their own set of versions independent of the notebook. So the notebook has 123 versions, while a code cell has only as many versions as it has unique values. Well, this is quite a lot of stuff in 121. So if I use this tab here, I can toggle show only affected cells. This shows me where the cell actually changed. So it looks like version 8 of code cell 26 was edited, then run, and it also produced a new output. The artifact tab offers another way of looking at our history. So in the artifact tab, we have this neat little table, artifact and version. What is an artifact? Good question. An artifact is the notebook itself, as well as cells, as well as output, as well as anything that we put into the notebook. We're going to call it an artifact. So here, each row, we've got the notebook, and then each cell in my notebook. And if I click on one, I can see it highlights, so I can see what is my current one. Versions, I've got this column here, which indicates how many versions of this cell I have created. So if I see here, I've got a 2 and then this funny dash and then a 3. That indicates for code cells how many versions of the code there was, and the 3 indicates how many versions of the output. So if I click on this one cell, I can see it had just 2 versions here of content, and its output has more versions. It looks like it's several different tables, and then earliest version, it didn't have anything. So this allows me to keep track of what I've been working on the most. And what it seems to be is I've spent an awful lot of time on correlations, as well as down here doing something with scikit-learn. So if I click down here, I can see that this one has 6 outputs and just 2 versions of the code. What I've got here is my mean absolute error. So I can see how it's changed as I've tried different versions of the feature sets. So up here, this is a special button that turns on the inspector. It's just like if I open up the Chrome thing, I can do the inspector for all the different elements on the page, the HTML elements. Well, with the history inspector, I can do pretty much the same thing. Highlight around, click around, and if I click something, it's going to open up here in the artifact details all the history of that artifact. So if I click my mean absolute error, I see just my mean absolute error over time. Now, a benefit of Verdant besides this is that it's got a built-in parser for Python 3 only that allows you to look at the value of artifacts that are smaller than a code cell. Because if I want to move something around different code cells, I'd like to be able to hold on to its history. So if I look at this particular line of code, I can see that it's had just one value. If I can also check on the different values that I've set this variable to, it looks like I've just set it to 1. Now, if I used a different language like Python 2 or Julia, I wouldn't have the benefit of this fine-grained thing of keeping track of specific variables, but the artifact pane would still work on the cell level, allowing multiple languages to run pretty easily. Those are the main features of Verdant. There's a bit more, but I really hope that you try out Verdant for yourself and check out the link to try installing it for yourself in JupyterLab.